Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And a lot of people still have a lot of questions about AT&T and its densification. It's a big topic amongst wireless enthusiasts and even some that are, a little bit more into tech than others. They're asking about, hey, what is happening with AT&T's densification? And what I will say, and I'll be honest, right? Very early on during LTE, AT&T's network was garbage in El Paso. And this was my market. It was a bad network. They weren't doing much. They didn't really do a big densification push during LTE. All they did was they started deploying the spectrum that they owned on sites they already had built. So they upgraded those. They went back to those sites again to upgrade them with newer panels and radios whenever those became available to become more efficient. But they weren't densifying because they were on a big media push. Now it's a bit different, right? They got rid of media. Now they're heavily involved in fiber, and they want to bring along the wireless business because it's a converged offering that they're doing. But I got to point it out in this video. If you are not in a market where AT&T is the ILEC, I'm concerned about the markets where AT&T is not the ILEC, where they don't have fiber. I am very concerned for those markets because there is no real incentive for AT&T to go bigger in investments there and bring that densification that people are wanting. There's no incentive. They very likely have low market share on wireless. They aren't able to offer fiber in those markets for a converged offering, so there's no real big growth on wireless. There's some, but it's not enough to trigger an all-out investment to go big on densification. So the picture that I have on screen is you see an AT&T C-RAN on the right, and then on the left where the red circle is, that's a macro that AT&T is installing. So they're densifying by me, but they're densifying by me for a specific reason. So it's really dependent on, they're really looking at it on a market by market basis. Here in El Paso, AT&T is the ILEC. They have fiber in the ground. They're penetrating more. They're growing their presence on the military base where they have a lot of AT&T customers. So they have to now densify, and that's exactly what they're doing. Right, the wireless share for the city is growing because of fiber, significantly growing. They're closing in on Verizon very fast. So they have to act on that. So what are they doing? They're investing and they're densifying. Yes, the C-RAN or LTE, but it's still a better experience than it would have been otherwise, right? So the average consumer doesn't care if it's LTE or 5G at the top. I've said this before, as long as it works. So that's the first thing, right? It's on a market by market basis. That's how they're going to look at it. They're not going to go big on densification in a market where they only have 12% market share on wireless. And if they're only growing by like 0.5% a year, they're not going to go big. They have to literally go from 12, 17%, 22%, 25%. Then you will start seeing a bigger urgency from AT&T on densification, right? Now, that's not to say that they shouldn't have densified to begin with, right? They should have, but they didn't, right? They had a big plan, 50,000 C-RAN, got canceled because they wanted DirecTV. Literally, right? I think I've shown that article before. That was literally what AT&T went through. So the difference between that and T-Mobile, right? T-Mobile, they really couldn't base it off of market by market or where are we growing because they never had low band. So T-Mobile had to densify in pretty much every market that they're in to a certain extent because they were only off of mid-band. So two totally different network builds, right? AT&T spaced for low band first, T-Mobile spaced for mid-band first. So two totally different situations. Because people have messaged me saying, well, how come T-Mobile is so dense and AT&T is behind in that department? Because AT&T spaced for low band first, then they weren't really growing much on wireless. So now it doesn't call for a big investment. Except, like I said, if you're in a market where they have fiber, where they're penetrating more homes, and where they're growing fiber, they're also growing wireless. If you are in that market, I'm telling you right now, get ready. It's going to be a nice network, wireless network. It's going to be nice. You're going to get a lot of CRAN. You're going to get a lot of macros. Dallas, Houston, 2026, 2027, explosion of macros. Explosion. San Antonio, El Paso, there's more macros planned through at least 2027. From what I saw, there's a couple of them this year, some next year, and then 2027. And then more CRAN. But that's only because of the success and the growth. So in markets where they are not the ILEC and they don't have fiber, it's, that's going to really be a tough case for the local or the regional vice presidents to make. Like when they start going around asking for yearly budgets and how much is spent in each market, it's going to be a tough case to make, right? If you go up to your higher up that you report to and say, hey, I want to spend $50 million for this market, deploying this, and that, they're going to be like, well, show me why we are deploying this, or why do we need this money, right? And then this guy says, well, I grew, 2% in the year, right? 2% total all year in wireless growth. They're going to be like, that's okay, but Mr. So-and-so in this market that's part of the same region grew 6%. He's going to need more money because he's more successful. His market is growing more. So you see where I'm going with this, right? It's not that AT&T just wants to leave those markets alone. No, they're strategically, smartly investing in areas that make the most sense at this time. So if you're in a market where there's no huge wireless activity in terms of growth and you have no fiber to get the wireless jump started, you're probably not going to get much, right? If it's on the East Coast, like New York, in the tri-state, right? They don't have fiber there. That's Verizon territory in terms of Fios and wireless and convergence this, convergence that. So it's going to be very, very hard for AT&T to gain any ground in that, in those battlegrounds, if you will. T-Mobile is smart, and they're starting to get into New York City with fiber, and they already had strong wireless share in that market, right? With the T-Fiber project. So they're starting to get there with fiber. So that leaves AT&T even more behind, because now you have Verizon and Fios converged offers, and then you're going to have T-Mobile's converged offers with the fiber provider. So again, we'll see, right? Well, it's still a wait and see approach, but like I said, if you're in a market that does not have AT&T fiber, it's going to be a tough case to make for AT&T, right, to keep you on wireless, because they're not really investing big unless they already have big share there or they're growing, at crazy rates. But usually, as it pertains to wireless directly, who grows the most? It's T-Mobile. So even in those markets where it's just direct competition, wireless to wireless, T-Mobile is taking AT&T's lunch all day long, right? So you got to keep that in mind as you're talking about densification, market by market basis, right? Hopefully, at some point you do get AT&T fiber, because I'm telling you guys right now, that transition from UVerse to fiber for El Paso, that really did it for AT&T. That really jump-started everything across the market, bringing that fiber onto the military base, getting it into more neighborhoods, new development neighborhoods, getting AT&T fiber right off the bat, upgrading neighborhoods from UVerse and DSL to fiber. All of that, I'll be very honest, really jump-started their wireless growth and really saved wireless, because it was bad for years. AT&T's network here, it was terrible for a long time. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. See y'all in the next one. Peace.